Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Alexis, a blind author, content creator, and freelancer. If you're interested in my beta reading services, essentially if you want your manuscript to get a critique before you publish, feel free to email me or find me on Fiverr. All of that will be linked in the description. With that out of the way, I do want to say that listening to this video was really interesting. I was actually supposed to release a bunch of the videos that I am releasing this year and probably for the next year, since I'm releasing these reviews. I'm trying to release these reviews once a week, but I might get behind a while ago. I think I recorded this 2 years ago and stuff like that. But re-listening to this video was kind of interesting because I went back to that feeling of anger when I read this book. So today I am reviewing the School for Good Mothers. I'm so sorry, I don't remember the author's name. I feel kind of bad about it, but yes, this is the School for Good Mothers. By the way, please listen to the content warnings I give in the video. Please take care of yourselves. I do give some content warnings when I get into the episode, but please take care of yourselves and listen to that. So yeah, I kind of went back to the anger I felt and completely understandable. I think in that kind of anger, I think when I discuss everything. So it makes perfect sense. So I don't have major writing updates with the exception of two. I have some word counts I want to talk to you about. And I also used a short story to, which is going to lead to that, to test, to do some as a testing ground for some editing, for a new editing strategy that I'm working on. And it worked out pretty well. I actually really liked it. I think I can use it on bigger books, or I will try at least. So, a few days after this video goes out, a few days before this video it is out, I asked in the community post if you would be interested in a short story, in a free short story. I considered publishing it for free, but the thing is that for sale, but the thing is that I know it's not going to do well, or it may not do well for sale because short stories, generally speaking, I might publish them for fun, but they generally don't do as well. So I'm planning to possibly publish a free short story on my website. And I'm wondering, and I'm probably publishing a bunch of short stories for free on my website. And I'm wondering if you guys would be interested, just to gauge the interest before I start doing that out of curiosity. So if you have not responded to the post, you can either respond there or you can comment down below here. Are you interested in a free short story? And also, are you generally a short story reader? Second, that short story actually came up because I, for my writing class that I'm taking, Fairy Tales and Myth, I actually retold, we did our first story, which was a retelling of a fairy tale. In my case, it was Beauty and the Beast. And I am thinking I may publish that for free on my website in a couple of months, rather than going to to the trouble of making a cover for it and publishing it for sale when it may not do very good. So I just wanted to gauge the interest and see how that would work out, how you would feel about it. So let's get into some word counts because we ended February and we ended it pretty good. I genuinely ended it pretty good. It was a very short month and I thought I would have less words, but a couple of things led to a pretty good success in the realm of words, I think. Most of this was first draft writing and structural changes. So I'll tell you as I get through the weeks, because I'm going to tell you all the way from February 2nd to February 28th, how I did for the weeks and everything. So I had 3 goals this February. So the biggest goal was I had 3 goals that I would have liked to complete, and if I did it, and I would have been happy if I completed one of them. So the good goal was 15,000 words at the end of the month. The better goal was 30,000, and then the best goal was 50,000. Let's see how I did, you guys. February 2nd, I was actually only tracking 2 days because February 1st fell on a Saturday. And so I only did the word count for Saturday and Sunday. Usually I do my word counts on Sundays, but I also go around depending how the month ends in order to essentially make it easier for me. And so in those 2 days, I wrote 3,560 words with an average of 1,780 in those 2 days. Wait, is that right? Hold on. Where is February? Yeah. Okay, yeah, a daily average of 1,780. So February Yeah, 1780, February 9th, I wrote 21,999 words. I'm really upset that I didn't go to 22,000. And this week actually was a bunch of structural changes to a project I'm working on. I was originally making short stories for this, but I ended up pushing a bunch of I ended up pushing like 3 to 4 short stories into one, and that kind of increased and also wrote a new story in that same project, and so that pushed me up a little bit, and the daily average was 3,142. And then February 16th, we go down to 11,248 with a daily average of 1,606 words. February 23rd, we go even lower to 4,148 words with a daily average of 592 words. So this week, from what I remember, I was specifically working more on my first draft of the fairy tale retelling. So I didn't really work on other projects. And then February 28th, which I was tracking for 5 days because because of the fact that February 28th fell out of Friday, I wrote 5,128 words with a daily average of 1,025 words. This one was kind of interesting because I was mostly editing the fairy tale. And this is where I ended up testing my new editing strategy, which was essentially listening to the story on my iPhone and only touching my Braille display to write, and then only using the Braille display later on for proofreading. And I think it worked out pretty well. And I would like to continue it because it seems like it's going to work out. It might require a little bit less energy, and it genuinely feels great. So for this month, I wrote 46,083 words. So I surpassed my good and better goal of 15 and 30,000 respectively. However, I did not end up going to the 50,000 word count. I'm essentially playing NaNoWriMo for every year. And the daily average of the month was 1,645 words. So for March, I have the same goals, and let's see how I do. But honestly, I think I rattled on long enough. But before we start on the video, a couple of housekeeping things. If you would like to support my channel, feel free subscribe and turn on notifications so you're aware when I post videos. I'm trying to schedule out content at least once a week, especially now that I'm very close to getting to a trip. So feel free to subscribe. That way you're aware when I release new reviews. And any other fun videos I'm considering releasing. If you would like to support financially, you can go on, other things to subscribe to. My website, subscribe to my blog so you can see my writing. And that way, whenever the short story goes live, you can see it. But if you would like to support financially, you could buy my books that are also linked in the description. You can, I have a literary fantasy novelette, and its sequel, The Beginning of Us, I am working on it, and I'm hoping to get it to you in late 2025 to early 2026. So I am working on it, and I will be getting it to you as soon as I can. That one goes full novella. So we went from novelette to novella. So if you are interested in that series, read the novelette, and I will let you know when the book is coming. When the second book, the novella, is coming. I also have a poetry collection if you're interested. Both are also available in my other YouTube channel, Writing by Alexis Matos, as audiobooks for free if you want to listen to it. But if you would like to support me, you could also purchase them on ebook and audiobook formats. You can also purchase them on Ko-fi because I do have an ebook shop there, or you can just drop off a one-time donation. I really would appreciate it. Thank you so much. And without further ado, here, let me take you to, I think, 2023 me, and enjoy this review. So, The School for Good Mothers. Oh, I have some thoughts. Now, before you read this book, I suggest looking up a list of content warnings, because I think that is necessary. I will give a list of the ones I noted. I will not talk about these much. I don't think I will. I will. I don't really want to, so I don't really think I will talk about these parts of the book. But I want to give you some content warnings to pay attention to. But make sure you actually do some research as well, because these are only the ones I noticed. So the ones I noticed are child neglect, child abuse, kidnapping, and suicide. So please make sure to take care of yourselves before reading this book and look up content warnings, because girl, this book is a wild ride, and I think we should all be taking care of ourselves. Now, I read this in 2 sittings, and I'm mad. This book makes me so very angry. I I don't know what to tell you. This book just makes me really really angry. And I will talk about that later. Um and I need to talk about this book. So here we are. Here's the synopsis. In this taut and explosive debut novel, one lapse in judgment lands a young mother in a government reform program where custody of her child hangs in the balance. Frida Liu is struggling. She doesn't have a career worthy of her Chinese immigrant parents' sacrifices. What's worse is she can't persuade her husband, Gus, to give up his wellness obsessed younger mistress. Only with their angelic daughter, Harriet, does Frida finally feel she's attained the perfection expected of her. Harriet may be all she has, but she's just enough. Until Frida has a horrible day. The state has its eyes on mothers like Frida, ones who check their phones while their kids are on the playground, who let their children walk home alone. In other words, mothers who only have one lapse of judgment. One lapse of judgment. Now, a host of government officials will determine if Frida is a candidate for a big brother like institution that measures the success or failure of a mother's devotion. Faced with the possibility of losing Harriet, Frida must prove that she can live up to the standards set for mothers, that she can learn to be good. This propulsive, witty page turner explores the perils of perfect upper middle class parenting, the violence encased upon women by the state and each other, and the boundless love a mother has for her daughter. Wow, the synopsis actually says exactly why I'm angry. I didn't fully read the synopsis. I actually jumped into this book knowing a little bit about it for a couple of different reasons. One, it was talked about in one of my calls with Envision's College Success Program, and two, I heard about this book like a couple of years ago through I remember hearing about it in the channel with Cindy. So yeah. By the way, speaking of Envision's College Success Program, if you are a student who happens to be blind or visually impaired, and you're a college student and you need some resources, they may be really good for you. They have resources on their website, but also they if you sign up with them, you can have like a mentor. You guys kind of check in. They can help you, and they also have weekly meetup calls, which where you can, which is really informal, but you can pretty much ask any questions that perhaps you might have as well. So I will link that below if you would like to take a look. Yeah. So with that, let's continue with the book that made me angry. So I'm going to just talk about this. I'm gonna say this. This book does make me really angry, but it's actually a really good book. I actually, I'll reveal my rating at the end, but I gave it a really good rating. It's just that this book made me really, really angry. And we're gonna talk about all of this, and specifically my thoughts on the subject and why specifically I'm angry, even though I've never gone through this or anything like that. So I want to say a couple of things first. The synopsis makes you think that Frida is a quote unquote young mother. She's not. I don't know, maybe this is me, but when I think of young mother, I think of a mother in her 20s, maybe early 30s, but most likely her 20s. Rita is, I think, like 39. If I remember correctly, she's 39 years old in the book. So I wouldn't say she's a young mother. I mean, she's a new mother, but not a young mother. I don't know. Maybe this is me. When I think of young mother, I think of someone in their 20s, similar to my age. For the record, as of recording, I am 23. By the time you see this, I'll be 24. So I think of a young mother being my age and like in their 20s or younger. So for me, I feel like the synopsis kind of misleads a little bit here. And I just wanted to mention that because I don't like misleading synopses. I really despise them. So I just like to mention that. So now let's start with this. The prose and the book is good. It's really easy and really accessible to read. So that's always a plus. And it reads in a really fast-paced way, which I think is which I think works for the kind of book this is. So we have a story pretty much told in third person, limited present tense, limited third person present, and I think this was a really good choice. It gives us the urgency that we need, I think, in this book, because everything in this book, present tense specifically as a point of view, um, makes the reader, I think, at least for me, it makes me feel like I'm there, and it gives immediacy and urgency to the events that are happening. Now, the pitfall of having a limited point of view is that the other characters around the main character don't feel like they have an arc. One sec, you guys. I'm drinking some water because I'm thirsty now. Okay. So, yeah, that I think that's the main issue, and this is the case in this book. Like the other characters who Frida interacts with don't really feel like they get an arc here because we don't get to know as much about them. We get to know some things about them, but we don't get. But it's mainly through Rita's eyes. So I think that's something to say. However, I guess in this book, I suppose it really doesn't matter because the other characters mainly act like mirrors for Frida to reflect on her life, and also to basically be like to basically use them almost as mirrors to change her own behavior in hopes of getting her daughter back. So I guess it doesn't really matter as much. But I just, yeah, I don't know. It's something that I've noticed, I think, in limited point of views, and which is why I most of the time don't write that way. But I do enjoy stories written like this too. So it's cool. Now, the pacing of this book is, I feel, when it comes to the pacing, I feel really mid. So I don't necessarily love or hate this pacing. It's just it goes. I think the pacing is really, it reads fast paced to me. I think the events happen really really quickly. There is there is build up to everything. So I think that's good. So in any way, I think it works for the story. I just kind of have mixed feelings on it, specifically because I don't really know if I like this pacing right now or not. I don't know I don't know how I feel about this pacing, truth be told. Now, the themes explored in this book are given a really good amount of pages. I think they have a really good amount of page time. I think they're explored really, really well. The main theme, of course, is motherhood and the perfection and, in general, parenthood. Now we're going to talk about why I am so angry with this book. But first, we're going to compare my anger to two other books along with this one. Now, I haven't been so angry at a book since I was 14 and I was in my Divergent phase, and I finished Allegiant, and I realized what happened in the end. No spoilers, I'm not going to spoil this for you. And when I read the ending of Allegiant, I remember it really clearly because it was those times when I used to stay up really late reading. I remember finishing Divergent around 11:30 to midnight, no later than 1 o'clock in the morning when I was 14, and I was almost crying. I remember almost crying, and I remember getting really mad when I finished that ending. So then there's the Odyssey, which, as of recording, I read a couple months ago, specifically the beginning of 2023. And then there's this book. And I feel different kinds of anger for all of these books. With Divergent, I felt angry with the ending because I was upset with the way it ended. But upon reflection and upon looking at it years later, I really like the ending of Allegiant because I felt it was a bold ending. When it came to the Odyssey, I felt angry while reading it, and I was just annoyed that I even had to read the book. But then when I finished the book, I felt relief. I felt relief when I finished this book. Like, when I finished that book, I felt relief. With this book, I decided to wait a couple of days before recording my review. I usually wait a couple of days before recording it, but I definitely decided, I was like, you know what, I need time before I record this because I want to reflect a little bit more on it. And no matter how much I reflect on it, I still feel really, really angry with it as I finish this book. And it has nothing to do with the way it ended. I found the ending really interesting, and I think we'll talk about it later, but I think that it fits a lot of, I think, Rita's character. It feels right for Rita's character, but also for Frida, god damn it, for Frida's character, but also I still feel really angry. So the main reason I feel angry, I think, for two different reasons. The first one is that I've mentioned it before, I think, but I am Latinx, and I think there is definitely a lot of both praise and judgment in the Latinx community of mothers. And there is a lot of there's usually no in between. So sometimes when mothers do something wrong, there's a lot of judgment. When a child does something wrong, there is always a lot of or does anything that could potentially embarrass the mother. There is a lot of blame, not on the mother, but the mother also blames the child, and it's kind of like it could, at least in my experience, it's like, you have embarrassed me, you've done this. There can be some shaming that happens, and I know this because I have heard this kind of rhetoric around me. There's also when the child maybe does something wrong and the mother reacts in a way that I would find questionable. There can be a response of what the child did was worse. So there are a lot of different responses, I think, in a Latinx community about mothers, or regarding to mothers, and they are, as women specifically, and by the way, this is not necessarily just the Latinx community. I'm looking at it specifically in my experience in the circles I run in. So this is not, I'm generalizing, but this is kind of the way, what I have seen. But I am generalizing, but this is what I have seen. So don't I would do some research on this if you want, if you're interested. But there's also the as a woman, as a Latinx woman, you have there are a lot of expectations, specifically there due to old traditions and misogyny, and a lot of these traditions I think are based in misogyny. Specific ones, and this is still the case. I think this is definitely still the case in other areas too, not just Latinx communities, but like the mother stays home, or like the woman cleans the house. The woman is the one who cooks. The woman is the one who takes care pretty much of everything regarding home, while the man is a not does not do any of that. So those are part of the reasons that's I think a reason I'm very, very angry, because I am Latinx, and I've seen how it has affected people around me, and I have seen how people uh react to it both negatively and positively, and I've seen women around me defend these kinds of things, and I despise this crap, because I because some of the expectations then go to me in certain areas, and like there are things I like, and they're considered not, maybe they're considered not great, but they're also just considered not great in general because of this reason or that reason. And it some of the things I grew up with, because while I am Latinx, I still grew up here in the US, and some of the things I picked up are will always clash with the Latinx culture. They will always clash. And while I am Latinx, I don't feel less attached to the Latinx culture, because there are so many things I think that I find generally distasteful about it, while there are things I love about it. And it is the same thing with here, the U.S. too. It's just that since I didn't grow up in my native country, I grew up here. I pick up more of my personality, I think, from here, so I'm less attached, I think, to the culture. So, but still, one of the reasons I'm angry is because I see this stuff around me all the time. And as someone who is femme presenting, it makes any point of being a woman just irritating, especially a Latinx woman. The other reason is because this rhetoric is familiar with a sphere of YouTube I am familiar with. So if you're anywhere in, say, not necessarily political YouTube, but like if you see commenters who specifically react to people who spout rhetoric of traditional values and family and gender roles and stuff like that, you know what I'm talking about. The rhetoric the school spouts in this book is very similar to the kind of rhetoric that people like the transformed wife spout, classically Abby, I think even Ben Shapiro, most likely Matt Walsh. Who else can I think of? No, those are the main ones. But especially Girl Defined. Let's not forget those. Paul and Morgan. These are very similar. Even Mrs. Midwest, I believe. Like, these are very similar. These people spout similar kinds of rhetoric related to women and motherhood. And it irritates me so much because I recognize it. And because there is so much, I think there's so much that is like not taken into account. when talking about gender roles and traditional values, things that are, there's so many things that are taken into account, like maybe people don't like those things and they try to push them on people. Like, I mean, yeah, like you may not like that, but also you're a woman and this is your place, and women and men are different, things like that. This whole thing just reminded me of all this pushing on YouTube, because I see it mainly on YouTube, but I know it makes its rounds on other social media platforms too. But I'm mostly on YouTube. Like I like YouTube, so a lot of my social media quote unquote presence is just on YouTube. So it reminds me so much of rhetoric like this that is spouted on that. And most of my experience comes from watching these commentators react to people like this, and I'm like, this is horrible to listen to. I usually have the stomach to listen to it, but this is horrible to listen to as someone who is femme presenting, as someone who some of the certain expectations or certain things are kind of, I think, expected of me as a woman, and in general, or as femme presenting, but people believe I'm still a woman, or I identify that way. I usually don't correct it because it's just it's annoying to do it. But anyway, there is I think there is so much to be said. I think there's so much to be said about that. Like it's so hard to listen to. I think it's so hard to listen to, but it's also really really like really telling about how people kind of see generally in women, so like how they see them in general. So it's kind of hard to uh just listen to this, and reading it in a book was just like was just reading the way the school kind of thought about it, or like spouted this kind of behavior, was just hard. It was really hard to listen to, I think. um and the other thing is the way that this book definitely highlights how the state fails fails the children, but it also, the state fails children, like in general, how adults fail children, and how it also fails parents. The state definitely fails parents, and one of the ways it does that is by putting a lot of the strain on women as mothers, while fathers who are in a similar school program don't get aren't pushed into this into a similar amount of expectations. They don't have a similar amount of expectations. But the women, oh, forget about it. When literally they have it sounds like a cult. Reading this book sounds like these women are in a cult. They're constantly being shamed for not being good enough. They have to repeat things like, I am a bad mother, but I am learning to be good. I am a bad mother because I am a narcissist, and because of this, it is generally disturbing to read this book. It's disturbing to hear this kind of rhetoric, but it is a kind of rhetoric that I am familiar with, both just in general, like because of the YouTube thing, but also because I know that this kind of extreme can happen in communities, and in communities in general. And what's interesting about this book is that it takes things that would be really really good, and then twists them. So one of the things that it discusses, for example, is for the children to respect children's boundaries, because like you don't know if they want you to kiss them or to hug them or whatever. Like, can you, like, if you listen to them, but then you have to do it the right way all the time. Apparently there's a way to do it, there's a way not to do it. Apparently there are different types of hugs, and it's for a specific amount of time. So they take something, and then they take something that would be normally good, and then they twist them. And also, one of the other things that makes me angry about this book, because of a similar the reasons I've discussed, is that all mothers are held to one standard. In the book, I'm not going to discuss this, but really quick, I'm just going to just say really quickly, I'm going to just mention parts of the content warnings, but for abuse and neglect. So, and also, by the way, I forgot to mention that I think there's a content warning in there for abandonment, but I could be because I think there might be. But it's mainly child neglect and child abuse for children when it comes to children. But basically, all mothers are held to one standard, because the mothers there are different kinds. All the mothers are put into kind of like the same school, and Frida, who had a very bad lapse in judgment, who has never done anything before, and hasn't been a bad parent before, and simply had a really bad day, and it's obvious that she seems to have some kind it's even mentioned like the mental that she has some mental health history, and she probably has some mental health issues right now. She is put with mothers who basically mistreat their children in terrible ways. Like, she is put with people who abuse their children verbally and physically. She's put with mothers who have done worse things than her, and somehow they're all held to one standard by the state. And if they look for anything else, like, any kind of romance and love, they're considered selfish, and they are they're bad mothers. It's just so hard, I think, to read it. I was really angry by the end. I was angry. I was just like, oh my god, this is like, I described it in a vlog like listening to the conservative YouTubers talk about motherhood and femininity, but without the commentary arguing back. It's like subjecting myself through that content without having any kind of someone fighting back. It was horrifying. It was just horrible by the end. Like, I felt really angry, and I find myself annoyed, and it was just so I was angry. I was also angry at these characters, and I'm going to talk about the characters later, but I was just angry at this point. And also, the way that they test mothers is even worse. The way that they do it is they give them these, like, dolls that are engineered to, like, to be kind of like children. Apparently the tears, their feelings, they're real. If they feel pain, it's real, but they have to, like, take out they have to clean out, like, this blue liquid if like once a month before it coagulates, and apparently it hurts them, and they're using, like, these spoons, and they use it, like, in like, they put it in the cavity of a child, which, if I'm being honest, I think I should probably put another content warning when seeing this. Only comes up once, but I should probably put another content warning of this to like, it feels like it's very close to a child sexual abuse. If you do this to an actual child, it would be considered sexual abuse, but they're not seeing it as a bad thing because they're doing it to dolls. And there is a lot of of like abuse that is happening to the dolls in order to have the mothers learn to soothe them. And it is so heartbreaking because if the dolls feel that, that is horrifying. If they're really designed to feel the kinds of things that they do to them in these books, as the book suggests, that is really horrifying, because what it says basically, these dolls feel emotions and they are really being abused. That's what we're going to say about that, in ways that if you do it to a child, it would be bad. And they're like presenting it like, yes, I know it's bad, but we need to do this. It's so bad. I even feel angry just on behalf of the dolls at this point. And it's disturbing, but also it's more disturbing to read about, to like, it's also disturbing to see the like the stuff that wasn't explored that could have been. So consider this. Two things. So the dolls are designed to feel real emotions. Like the tears are supposed to be real, their actual reactions are supposed to be real. And by the way that Emmanuel, the Frida's doll, is behaves, it implies that they're designed to feel to also learn like children. Now consider the effects here. Consider two things. If the dolls are designed to feel emotions and learn/behave like children, would it not make sense that the dolls eventually feel actual love for the women who they interact with, who are taking care of them? And vice versa. Would it not make sense that the mothers eventually fall, gain some affection and even some kind of protection, or feel like they should protect the dolls? Would it not make sense? Now, it is implied that they're basically designed to, they're kind of going to be like, they have to record the mothers, they end up recording the mothers like, they end up recording the mothers and they score them on a specific thing. But basically, yeah, would it not make sense? Now, this basically says to me that the people, the state and this experiment did not take this into account, because if they did, it would be another failure on their end. Because what ends up happening is that if these dolls feel these things for the people taking care of them, and if the people feel something for the dolls, then what you're doing by the end of it is ripping the dolls away from possible parents, and the parents away from what could probably be what could probably be similar to a second child. I don't know. I think there are some ramifications here. And it does show with the dolls. The dolls are a really good example of how the state, again, fails parents, fails children. It's hard to read this. It really is. I only read it in one sitting because of the writing, but it really is. I'm sorry, in two sittings with the writing, because it really is hard to read. So now that I've discussed parts of the reason I'm angry, we're going to continue discussing parts of my anger with the characters. Frida is an interesting character to follow. I like her as a character. I think she's really interesting as a character. I got angry on her behalf, how her mental health was used against her. It shows the stigma that mental health seems to have. Mental health is still very heavily stigmatized, and that is unfortunate. But especially when it's really, really bad, it's really heavily stigmatized, and I think it definitely shows that. But we also have the other characters I'm angry at, Gust and Susanna. I hate both of these characters. I hate them so much. I'm pretty sure the author wrote them intentionally for the reader to hate them. I'm pretty sure. And the author did a good job. because I absolutely hate them. They're so annoying. First of all, Gus is useless as a character to me. Like, as a father, he feels very much like a useless parent. And somehow he's the one that has to that is with Harry by the end. Although I have a strong feeling it's Susanna doing most of the care because she's the mother, or she's the woman in his life, and I really she's the one doing most of the care. And I have to wonder, how did a 28-year-old seemingly smart woman fall for that man? Because he has less personality than Vanilla Ice Cream, and I like Vanilla Ice Cream. I love it so much, and somehow he is worse. He has less personality than Vanilla Ice Cream. I don't take credit for that metaphor, by the way. The credit all is for Whitsunday. So, I don't understand how she fell for him. And somehow, I don't like him as a character because he basically cheated on Frida, and somehow, he, like, he sort of tries to tell Frida in a way how to parent in some ways. And I know that they're both co-parenting, but also he is shown to be really easily influenced in certain areas of the story by Susanna, and I find myself really annoyed. The reason I don't like Susanna as a character is because she is the kind of person I just wouldn't want to interact with. Susanna is a character who constantly imposes. She is the person who you didn't ask advice from, but she'll give you that advice because she randomly wants to. Like, she in what's interesting about about her and that kind of person is they have great intentions, but they superimpose, and they don't have a but they don't seem to know, they don't have a respect for your boundaries, so they're annoying. Um and and she somehow feel like she's considered to be the better parent. Like, she seems to be like the social worker in the story seems to like Susanna better than Frida. But also the she Susanna is also the kind of person who like seems to want to co-parent with you when you didn't agree to co-parent with her. It's annoying. She's really irritating as a character. I dislike her so much. She's annoying. She's the kind of character or the kind of person I wouldn't want to interact with. Overall, I'm angry by the way I finished this book. I don't feel any relief by the fact that I ended it. The ending of this book was not expected in general. The way that this book ended, I was not expecting, but I found really interesting. Honestly, I like the ending of this book. I actually really do. I think the ending of this book was really interesting. But I'm also very angry by the way I finished this book. This book gave me serious issues and anger. I'm angry with this book. But it is a good book. But I still got angry. I actually gave it 4 stars because it was really well written, and I think it explored the subject matter quite well. But I'm still upset and angry because I think this book needed because I think this book could have I don't know, it could have had like I don't know, it just could have been a lot of things, but I wasn't expecting it. But I got really angry because I know about this, and this kind of rhetoric is something I understand, and I hate it. I hate it so much. So let me know in the comment section what you think of The School for Good Mothers. I'll be back with a good review next week, I promise, because I'm actually planning to record that next. So I'll give you a break from my kind of anger, and we're gonna talk about a good book for next week, okay? So let me know what you think, because I don't feel okay. I don't feel okay. And it's been a couple of days since I read it, but I don't feel okay. Let me know your thoughts. Hey, welcome back. I hope that you enjoyed that review and that you understand why I'm mad about this book, or why I was definitely very angry about it. I think it's one of those books that is still worth reading, no matter like what. Even if you are angry, especially at the systems, if you really want something to rage at, I think this book is especially important now, considering our current administration and their the way that they view things, the very conservative type, especially the way that they view things and the way that things are being run in this country. It feels like this book is great for for specifically that type. If you want to rage at something, or feel like something is able to understand your rage at the current system of that we're in, and generally speaking, the horror of it, I guess. Like, it feels like the right book for now. And I'm kind of glad I specifically didn't post this earlier because even this year I fell behind on how I planned to post this, but I did not end up posting this before because I was sort of burning out and trying to figure out my content. So I was only posting here and there. By the way, there are no vlogs that you'll be able to find in my channel anymore. But anyway, I was trying to figure out my content and kind of burning out. I was feeling a little bit burned out, and I was trying to figure out my content, where I wanted to take the channel, what I wanted to do, if I wanted to continue specifically writing content and stuff like that. So I ended up deciding to maybe film, but put posting and editing in the back burner as I focused on that and my writing, as well as other college related stuff. So last year I barely posted. And this year, I also fell behind because I got sick. But point being, though, I feel like, in a weird way, it was the perfect time to post this review, because we are going through we're starting out these next 4 years in the U.S. With a really horrifying political climate where we don't know what's going to happen. Right now, we have currently a corrupt billionaire in office, with another corrupt billionaire who is apparently leading a department in the government that is supposed to be for efficiency, and yet is cutting costs in places that actually matter. And it feels like the systems are terrible, right? The systems are terrible, and they are. It doesn't feel like it. The systems suck. Our current government, terrible. It does not care about us. It does not care about you. It cares about whatever the hell is, however the hell they'll put money in their pockets. It doesn't care about making life better for you. And I think this book is a perfect, a perfect read for if you want to be angry, but you're not looking to, I guess use it out, necessarily let people know that you're extremely angry. You just want some kind of solace, and your solace is, I'm angry, and I want a book that essentially shows my emotions. I think that's this book. So in a weird way, I think I released this review in perfect timing. I generally do not try to I know reading is political and everything, but I generally try not to bring up politics in my channel. But I have brought it up twice in 2 weeks, because unfortunately for all of us, all of these subject matters are political, and we should be able to talk about it, especially in our current administration that is trying to silence us. So, or at least in my opinion, that is what it's trying to do. So, I feel like this review came out. I released it and edited it at a perfect time. So hopefully, though, this gives you a certain amount of solace, that you're not alone, that there are systems, generally speaking, our systems suck. And if you feel that our systems suck and you just want something to rage at that isn't directly our system, but you still want to talk about it in a certain way, I don't know. I hope this book is that book for you. That's what it felt like for me. Like, even revisiting this was just like, yeah, our systems suck. And I'm glad I am releasing some of the anger by reviewing this book. There's relief. There's relief in reviewing this and stuff. So without further ado, I guess I'm going to end this. Let me know again in the comments. First of all, would you read this book? Have you read it? Did you enjoy it? Did you dislike it? Also, let me know if you are interested in a free short story. I am not going to plug myself again, not like I did in the beginning of this. Honestly, probably shouldn't have, but I'm not going to do that a second time just because, I don't know, the subject matter is too harsh for me to do it again. And honestly, the fact that I did it in the intro, I think, was more than enough. I was originally not planning to do it, but I did it anyway. But I think it's a bit, I'm not going to do it a second time. But let me know in the comments if you would be interested in a free short story. I promise it will not be handling all these subject matters like this. It's actually going to be probably a fairy tale, if anything. It might just be it'll be the fairy tale retelling. And I do write stronger narratives, but I think I want to release the fairy tale first. So yeah, let me know all of that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having a great day. I'll see you next time. But until then, consume stories. Bye.